Welcome back. Now, this week on Not the One Show, the big question is all about dating and the rules of getting together in London. With that in mind, they have a very special competition where you could win a date with the show's presenter, Louise Scody. Here she is to explain more.
Dating in London can be really, really difficult. So if you're sick of being single, well, here's something that might chirp you up. We're running a competition to win a date with me. And all you have to do to enter is send a short clip of yourself saying why you think that you should go on a date with me. And then Uncle Anthony and Auntie Francesca are going to pick the date for me. So I have absolutely no say in the winner. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. And we will go on a proper date together, maybe having lunch somewhere, maybe to an amusement park. Well, probably not to an amusement park. I'll get motion sickness, but we'll go for lunch somewhere, and it'll be lovely. And if nobody enters, then I'll end up really sad and lonely and depressed. So enter by sending in your clip to entousteam@londonlive.co.uk. P.S. I really like men in glasses. I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's coming.
And if you fancy going on a date with Louise, head over to the website londonlive.co.uk to find out how to enter and for the full terms and conditions. And in the spirit of Dating Week on Not the One Show, we're talking about interracial dating in the capital. Are we as open-minded as we like to think when it comes to who we choose to go out with or even settle down with? Joining me to discuss this are author and radio host, dear Rob, Nimrod Kamer, who's a journalist, Alpa Sajani, who's managing director of the Tantric Club, an exclusive dating club for Asian professionals, and Afua Hirsch, who's a social affairs and education journalist. Nimrod, I heard you getting a bit excited there with your, you're wearing glasses. Louise said if you've got glasses, you're in there.
I'm emotionally available, and I see myself going. Yeah, I want to date a London Live presenter at some point.
Indeed. So, from what I understand from you, you're willing to date anyone. Tell us about your background and what kind of women takes your fancy in London.
Yeah, so I dated like Pakistani ladies and black ladies because I'm like black from the inside. That's how I see myself. And some people tell me you're white, and I believe them because I like the Eagles, the band, which only white people like. And I don't intentionally date like black ladies, but I can fall in love really easily.
Okay, so where are you from originally then?
I grew up in Israel, and I live in Hackney, just trying to become who I am, basically. Yeah.
So I guess in the case of the Jewish community, that's not typically the norm. Would I be fair in saying that?
It's always fun to shock parents, like either my parents or my mate's parents, and every time something is forbidden, you want to do it, like drugs. So, I mean, if for example, it would be forbidden to date black people, everybody would. And if everybody would date mixed race, like there would be no race left. I mean, because the same color.
So, Afua, you've written about this. Is Nimrod typify what we like in London in terms of if it's forbidden, then we'll go for it?
Well, I have to confess, we've all been having a go at Nimrod before we came on air, accusing him of exoticization. But it was not entirely serious. I think it is very common for people to want to date people of a different ethnic group, and I think that's very natural in a city that is so proud of its multiculturalism and really is integrated in a way a lot of other great cities aren't. But on the other hand, I think there is always, for me, alarm bells always ring slightly when people deliberately seek out people of a different ethnic background. And not because there's anything wrong with dating that person, but because I question the motives. So if you're doing it because you just happen to be attracted to that person and you're open to everyone, that's one thing. But if you have a fetish for a particular ethnic group, or you're looking to make some kind of statement through the choice of who you date, I think that's a problem. And I think I'm mixed race, and I think that people who take their identity very seriously, or who've had to work a lot on their identity, often really reject the idea of seeing your race as some kind of accessory, something that you can use to make a point. I think it's a really integral part of who you are, and it should be respected. So that's the only little note of caution that I have.
I mean, Alpa, this is something that you could agree with. I'm sure a lot of the clients that you work with, they have spent a lot of time protecting their identity and want to keep that identity the same with the partner that they choose. Is that fair?
I'd say, you know, at some level, yes. You know, like within the Asian community and at Tantric Club, what we do, we allow people the opportunity to meet those from the same cultural background. You know, and obviously that shows that there is a market out there. There is a preference. People do want to stay within that whole kind of cultural group, if you like.
Is that right? Is it right to say, oh, you know, actually, I just want to stick with Jewish people or with Asian people or people who are the same religion as me? You know,
okay,
in this modern age, no?
Yeah, I think it's more to do with kind of religion and culture, okay? So what happens, you want to be with somebody who has a similar kind of value, belief system, maybe someone who was raised in a, you know, in a like manner to yourself, you know, someone who speaks the same language. I mean, for a lot of the Asian community, you know, especially if, like, you're a first generation, you know, language is a barrier. So with Asians, you know, a marriage is about two families, not just two people, and that integration is very important.
Does that continue amongst the third and fourth generation?
I think I think at some level it will. Maybe it won't be as, you know, as restricted, because what you'll find that, you know, things like language, culture, and kind of assimilating to kind of Western society will be much, you know, larger, or it'd be more integrated than, say, for example, my parents' generation.
So what happens then with people, or if you know, within the Asian community, who decide to actually go outside of their culture, go outside of their faith? What happens then? Can they be shunned?
No, you know what, I mean, if we kind of go, you know, 10 years ago, you know, you would be ostracised, you know, you would be shunned and your family disown you. Today, it's a lot more, you know, socially acceptable comparatively, you know. There are still probably issues like, for example, if a Hindu person brought, like, a Muslim person home, you know, that's kind of still quite, you know, politically incorrect because of the conflict, you know, between the two societies. But, yeah, you know, it certainly is something that is more socially acceptable within the Asian community compared to 10 years ago.
So, Rob, what's your attitude towards dating? I mean, Louise is looking for a guy. Would you enter that competition?
Well, if her family and background were accepting of it, then yes. But miscegenation is always a controversial topic, because to some people it's a welcome consequence to a multicultural society. To some people it's a challenge to cultural identity, because some people are very patriotic. To some people are not sort of auspicious to it. I think you should date who you want to date, love who you want to love, kiss who you want to kiss, hug who you want to hug. That's my line in it. But we have to bear in mind that there are some people who have issues with it. And I don't think people should shoot someone down for their preference. If someone prefers to date someone who's black and they're white, that's fine. However, I do have a slight issue when I meet some white women who say they only go for black guys. Sometimes I think you have underlying issues.
So women actually say that to you?
I've heard it, and I've got some black mates who only date white women. And sometimes their argument for it is that how some black women are difficult, blah, 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 etc. But I always say to myself that you can't generalise and make blanket statements because of the people you've gone for. Sometimes you've got to look within yourself and find out if you're the problem. So as far as I'm concerned, date you want to date. However, you have to make sure that the grandparents and the parents are accepting of you.
So who do you like to settle down with then, ideally?
Preferably, I would say it would be somebody who was of the same skin tone, the same skin colour as myself. However, it's more to do with her mindset. If she's cultured well, and because that is a main part of who I would date, because some people say it's wrong, but I've got a heritage, I'm Nigerian, and I would like to sort of teach my children that. And if somebody who I'm dating is not going to be accepting of that or accommodating to it, then there's going to be a problem.
Do you think maybe somebody might find that offensive, or...?
Some might do, but that doesn't really bother me. I'm not the most... utopian person in this world, so it doesn't...
So you don't find black women difficult then?
I don't, and that's the funniest thing. When people say that, I don't have problems with dating black women, but some black men do. But I think that's just their platform, or they've got some form of underlying issue which they just haven't come out with. But I don't have problems dating black women. They don't...
Can I say, there are no black ladies who vote for UKIP. So if I'm dating a black lady, I know I'm not dating a UKIP supporter, and that reassures me, like, all the way, because I just never met any, and there are none.
Is this one of the questions you ask women when you're approaching them?
I mean, it's part of the advantage of dating mixed race. You know they're not racist. Usually, I mean, I guess.
Although he just said he's not very interested in them settling down with somebody who's not from his race.
You said snog who you want to snog.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The Eurovision Snog contest
What's
coming
that?
up. The Eurovision, I mean, yeah,
Eurovision,
Snog.
what's that?
It's a contest which I think we need more black people and like more diversity in the Eurovision.
Yeah.
By the way.
I do think that dating is one of the kind of last areas where otherwise really unacceptable ideas are still tolerated. Like, for example, I've heard white women say things like, once you go black, you never go back. You know,
It's true,
and
it's
like
true, it's true.
people do say things like that.
Billy Evans said it as well.
And you know, in no,
Allegedly.
in no other area of life can you imagine that being regarded as acceptable. But I think because dating combines, you know, aesthetic values and attraction, which is not a rational thing, and that's fair enough, you can't help you're attracted to. But when it comes to marriage and relationships, you're actually creating a family and having children, and these are all really serious things that I think you need to take seriously. And I think there's a kind of frivolous attitude sometimes towards interracial dating, which is fine, but there are some really weird prejudices that still creep in.
That's so interesting you should say that as a mixed race person. I mean, what has your attitude been? I don't know if, I hope this doesn't sound very wrong, but you know, how do you think, okay, well, I can just choose whatever I want, you've got to pick of anyone because of your background?
I don't think it works like that. I think identity is quite a complicated thing. My mother is black, my dad is white. Most of the mixed race people I know tend to veer more towards one side of their heritage. I think it's quite difficult to walk around feeling like I'm half of this and half of that. I think it's a very human thing that you want to kind of belong to something. And I have gravitated more towards my black heritage, and I have other mixed race friends who have gravitated more towards their white heritage. And I think nobody can police that from the outside. Nobody can tell you what you are or where you belong. You have to feel that yourself. But I think it is quite common for mixed race people to kind of move into one camp rather than just sit in the middle all the time. Although I've got another mixed race friend who's very proud of saying I've tasted the rainbow, and that's
Physically eaten the rainbow.
I don't want to go into the literal details of that, but
okay.
So living in London, could you get away with what you're doing in London if you were, say, in Israel?
I could, yeah. I mean, in Israel it's much more like obvious if you date an Arab person as a Jewish person. So it's like you have to defend yourself. You have to make it as a point. I mean, dating is like the way to promote peace in a way, like Tinder for peace. Like I want to use Tinder on disputed borders to get a date from the other side. And yeah, that's my take on that.
So what's the big issue for you, race
like
or
on Tinder,
religion?
there is no race options, right? On Tinder,
yeah.
Or on any dating apps. So I mean, that's the way forward.
I haven't used Tinder. There's actually no option for race. You can't. You just get.
But you have used Tinder. Everybody who doesn't use Tinder say I did not use Tinder. So you did use Tinder. Yeah.
Honey, I didn't use Tinder. Okay, yeah.
It's just about distances. Tinder. You choose the mileage. No
well, okay, well, look, my producer's saying that she uses Tinder. She's looking for a man right now. And she says race is an issue on Tinder, that you do have an option of race.
Well, sometimes you have, like, white people and black people on their Tinder photo,
no
and you
option,
don't know
but you
who
can
they
mention,
are.
yes, you can mention your race.
You can't. Just male and female and distance from your loved one, yeah.
it's not a dating site, but I recently went to a hen party where there was a butler in the buff. Don't know if any of you are familiar with this. And they'd chosen from a menu. I mean, you can actually choose from a menu of races, you know, and they'd specified
when choosing the butler.
Yeah, and they'd specified that they wanted, you know, a dark-skinned black man of African heritage. But to me, there is something quite problematic about that. I think sometimes this crosses into objectifying people, and, you know, it's usually women that we think of as being objectified. In this case, I did feel for this guy. I mean, he comes, you know, and he's got...
Careful.
Yeah, I'll be careful like this. But, you know, he was chosen because he fit a certain profile, and that encompassed his physique as well as his race. And it was because, you know, for very superficial reasons. And I think that is problematic. I think we shouldn't get so complacent that we think it's fine to say, I want...
What's wrong with that, though? What's wrong with me, someone having a preference, saying, I want a dark-skinned, tall, black guy, he's 6 foot, blah, blah, blah. I like a white one,
because
he's 5
there's
foot
a flip side. So if it's okay to say, I want a black guy, it's also okay to say, I don't want
and what's wrong with that?
an Asian guy.
I don't see what's wrong with that.
I think that might seem fine, but it's a slippery slope. And I do think, I mean, it's not that long ago we've had moments in history where, you know, whole ethnic groups were blacklisted, you know, and I think you have to be careful about racial profiling.
It's going to be a backlash.
Yes.
Yeah, but as long as you're not degrading that set of people in order to have
define
that preference.
degrading.
For instance, if I say, for instance, my preference is going for, I don't know, white women, as long as I don't say, oh, the reason I only go for white women is because so and so.
Yeah.
If I just say, oh, I just find white women so attractive, they love your silky flowy hair when they're running through the beach and it flicks.
You think that's women's hair?
Hey, my hair's
What are you saying?
That's my reason no reason for it.
I'm openly white. That's the key. It should be openly white, openly black.
Alpha, do you agree with what Rob's saying?
Do you know what? I just thought of something else. I mean, there's also that issue of some people will date different types of people from different ethnic minorities, but when it actually comes down to marriage and settling down, they'll actually say, no, I want somebody who's from the same cultural background as me. I think there's a difference between dating. I think, you know, I was thinking about it as you were talking about Tinder, and actually wanting to